This video is going to be about drumsticks. So there's a lot of things to know about drumsticks, even though they seem like they should be pretty simple. The first thing is the sizes. So the sizes have numbers and letters, and as a general rule, the larger the number, the smaller the stick, and the larger in the alphabet letter, the larger the stick. So they kind of go in opposite directions. So this guy's a 7A, which is going to be on the smaller end. This guy is about a 5A, it's a little bit bigger. This guy is a 5B, which is even bigger. This is a 2B, which is larger still. This guy is an S series, which is even larger than A or B. And then this doesn't even have a designation, it's just a gigantic stick, which is quite common these days to have artist models or random sizes that were developed by a single company that don't correspond to anyone else. So a lot of the time you just have to pick it up and feel how big it is. And when we say size, we're talking about diameter, because the length on all these sticks is pretty much within a 1/4 inch of each other. So if we go down to the 7A, A used to be known for orchestra or jazz, whereas this being a 5B, it was designated for band, hence the B. And then the S models were for marching, so just used on snare drum. That almost makes sense. But now today it's kind of like you pick the one that you think feels right to you. So another important feature besides the thickness of a stick is the tip. So they are all roughly similar looking, but I have them kind of grouped into the different styles of tip. Over here we have the acorn or teardrop shape, depending on what you want to call it. It's sort of thick at the back and thin at the front, but it doesn't taper evenly. You can either get sticks in wooden tip or nylon tip, and the shape choices are generally the same. And we'll talk about the difference between those in a second. The next tip shape is the barrel shape, so these two sticks have that. It's relatively square in profile. And then the next tip shape is the bead or circle tip. It's pretty much just a round ball at the end. And then we have the oval tip, which is, elliptical, and there's a few different size variations of that one. So basically, they have different articulations on the drums and cymbals, and that's the reason for having different shapes. The acorn is going to give you, or you can call it a teardrop, is going to give you a range of choices because it varies in taper. The barrel tip is going to give you a pretty fat sound, but obviously these are pretty small, so the size of the tip is going to matter as well. The ball tip is going to give you a really small surface area striking the cymbal, so it's going to be pretty articulated, but then again, these are pretty large, so that factors into it. And then the oval is going to give you sort of a medium amount of contact with the drum or cymbal. And again, the larger ones are going to sound much thicker than the smaller ones. So as far as nylon versus wood, these two are the same stick, but this has the nylon tip, this has the wood tip. The main differences is this is going to sound brighter on cymbals, and this is going to sound a little bit darker. This one will not chip, but it can just break in half and pop off, whereas this one won't completely deteriorate, but it'll wear down over time to where it's sort of splintering and wearing down. So if you're worried about never having a splintered tip and always being perfect, you would go with the nylon until the time that it breaks, and then you just have to get a new stick. You can't even hit the drum one more time. There's really nothing under there to use. This one will wear down over time. You can sort of see it coming, but if it chips before you're ready, you can keep playing through the rest of your song or whatever. So it's both a sound consideration and a durability consideration. One other thing to consider when looking at sticks is the taper. So basically it's a consistent thickness until a certain point, and then it thins down up to the tip. These two sticks here have a very short taper, consistently thick up until very close to the tip, and then it gets thin over a short distance. That puts a lot of weight at the front, so it's good for playing loud, getting a lot of rebound, but not a lot of fine articulation. These sticks have sort of a medium taper. The taper starts earlier on the stick, and they more gradually taper. Then these sticks actually have an even longer taper. So it starts on this stick, it's way back here that it starts tapering. And what that does, provide a lighter feel, so it's easier to play softer, and you get more subtlety out of each bounce with a longer taper. So one final consideration is actually the wood that the stick is made out of. Even though these sticks are all different shades of wood and slightly different grains, they're actually all hickory. I didn't do that on purpose, they just all ended up being hickory. That's what I picked out. So you could also get maple, which is a little bit more flexible, or you could get oak, which is actually not flexible at all. It's very rigid. And it affects the feel of the stick, how it's going to bounce, but it also changes the energy absorption. So the softer woods are going to give you more absorption, and it's going to not transfer as much shock into your hands when you play. Stiffer sticks, oak, is going to transfer more shock, but they're more durable as well. So honestly, I would suggest picking up the stick and seeing how it feels rather than picking based on the wood. And if you check out, I have a couple of sticks here. I guess this is the other final consideration. These sticks are artist models. This stick is sort of proprietary to this brand. And this stick is supposed to just be a stock 5B stick. One thing to watch out for is that artist models usually don't conform to any of the rules. They can be sort of any size they want. This is a Simon Phillips stick. It almost has no taper at all, which is kind of weird, but it feels pretty good to play. This is a Dave Weckl stick. It's got this interesting brown coating on it, which I thought was cool until I found out that it's really hard to hold on to. This is a size that almost doesn't occur in any other brand, so it's a Vic Firth. It's just interesting to note. And this stick is just supposed to be a regular run-of-the-mill 5B, and of course there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be your favorite drummer's stick for it to work.